Welcome to my class on the Westland. We are on the fourth section of the poem, and the title of the fourth section is Death by Water. In the previous section, the fire sermon, what we understood that fire was used as a symbol of lust, passion, and physical desire. And there was a reference to Gautam Buddha's counseling, nirvana. That means the counseling in which, or the advice in which, Gautam Buddha advised his disciples and followers to develop a control on physical desires because human beings, according to T.S. Eliot, they have lost their control on their desire of physical pleasures. Now, fire was used as a symbol of lust, as a symbol of physical desire. And what is important in T.S. Eliot's poetry, basically the Westland, you must have noticed by this time that different symbols have been used in this poem. And fire has been used mostly as a symbol to indicate and to signify negative aspects of moral character. And in most cases, not in all cases. But fire has also been used as something positive, as a positive symbol. But in Westland, we see that the symbol fire is mostly used to indicate negative aspects of human character. Now, just contrary to the previous section, the fire sermon, what we see in this section, section number 4, death by water, what we see that water is to some extent has been used as a symbol which shows or which gives double possibility or double meaning or dual possibility. What is the possibility? Let's read. Now, I also want to share with you certain things that the symbols T.S. Eliot has used in this poem, the allusions Eliot has used in this poem. So these allusions, these symbols, they have been used in order to explore both basically the negative aspects of human psychology and in rare cases the positive things. We are towards the end of the poem. We are in the fourth section, and we hope to complete the poem in today's class. There is another section, and after the discussion of these two sections, I will explain to some extent the main characteristics of this poem and the structure, the style or stylistic features of this poem. So I hope that you will continue this class till the end. Now, in this section of the poem, Death by Water, Eliot has used water as a symbol which shows dual possibility, which gives dual possibility. One is resurrection and the other is destruction. One is regeneration and the other is degeneration. Degeneration is a characteristic, degeneration is an aspect that pervades the whole wasteland. So we have so far noticed that a kind of sad tone pervades the entire poem. And what we see in this section flavors the Phoenician fortnight date. You must remember, or hopefully you can remember, the tarot pack of cards which Madame Sosostris displayed in the first section. At the time I said that these cards, basically the kind of pictures or the kind of portraits that we saw on the cards of Madame Sosostris, they were basically the characters of the wasteland, and gradually those characters will come, and we have noticed those characters to appear one after one another so far. And this is another character, the Phoenician Sailor or Smyrna Sailor. You can this flavors also signifies or represents the Smyrna Sailor. I mean, there was the profession of fortnight date forgot the cry of gulls and the deep sea swell and profit and loss. Now, this is commercial activities, that people or the sailors or the businessmen who spent their life uh, in, uh, you know, uh, absorbed in commercial activities, in making money, in doing businesses, and this sort of materialistic gains. They spent their whole life. Now, what will happen? Eliot uh, frequently refers to another, allusion. The allusion of, fertility god or fertility cult. That means there was the pagan tradition of immersing effigy in the river or in the sea, with the hope that there will be a kind of resurrection. So this was pagan tradition. So Eliot also alludes to that pagan tradition because that pagan tradition has been used by the poet as a source or as a symbol or as an allusion which shows the possibility of regeneration. And there was the tradition of immersing, effigy in the in the river or in the sea, so that there can be a kind of regeneration. This sort of immersion is still in vogue among the Hindus who immerse goddess Durga in the ponds or in the rivers with the hope of spiritual regeneration. Now, this is the first time we see that Eliot has become to some extent optimistic, and he has left possibilities, dual possibilities of considering water as a source of both destruction and degeneration and regeneration. It's true that the sailors spent their life in business and in making money. So whether there will be or there is any possibility of regeneration is not clear. But Eliot over here leaves the possibility that there is the chance. What we see in the next few lines: a current under sea picked his bones in whispers. Now, these bones have been repeatedly used by Eliot. And what does it indicate? The presence of bones, what does it indicate? It indicates the possibility or impossibility, probability or improbability of regeneration. So, here, Eliot's tone is not that much sarcastic and negative as we witnessed in the previous section of this poem. As he rose and fell, he passed the stages of his age and youth, entering the whole world. Now, this is the human life. As human beings, they develop, they grow up in their age, they become matured, and then they become old. Now, the whole life is passed in activities, in commercial activities, and they are basically in the cycle of a whirlpool in the seawater, from which they cannot find any exit. So this is how he spent his life. This is how the people spent his life. Now, is there any possibility after this sort of life, we spend our life in unholy things, in commercial activities, in doing businesses? We are talking about the Christian people. We are talking about the Western civilization. How did they spend their life? So they spend their life in these sort of activities, and they were in a kind of a whirlpool. Uh, and Gentile means non-Jewish, Gentile or Jew, or you who turned the wheel and looked to the windward, consider Flavus, who was once handsome and tall as you. So these three lines, last three lines in this section, Eliot again indicates that whether you are a Gentile or a Jew, that means whatever may be the religion, you turn the wheel and look to the windward. So you follow the direction. If you follow the direction, what kind of direction you will follow? You will follow flavors. Why will you follow flavors? Because flavors is that kind of sailor who has got the possibility of regeneration. Now remember, flavors here indicates also Ferdinand of the Tempest. The Tempest is a play by William Shakespeare, in which Ferdinand was crying or lamenting over his missing father and his acquaintances on the seashore after the shipwreck, we all know. So, Eliot has used the allusion of the tempest repeatedly, and Ferdinand. Why? because moments later or hours later, Ferdinand realized that his father and other persons of the ship, they were alive. So what happened that they became more refreshed instead of being drowned in the sea. So what Eliot refers to here, or what Eliot wants to indicate, that water can be a source, can be a symbol of regeneration, which happened in the case of Ferdinand. So over here, Phlebas also refers to Ferdinand again. So Eliot, to some extent, has become optimistic that water can be constructive, water can be regenerative, and that is why I say that you can consider Phlebas as Ferdinand as well. Not only that, I have already said that in this section of the poem, the fertility cult. This sort of fertility cult, is available in the book of J.C. Weston and Fraser. So in these two books deal with the fertility cult and different vegetation myth. So if possible, if you get chance, then you can read these two books. Books by these two authors, from Rituals to Romance, is by one author. And if you read the books of these two authors, these books on mythology are very famous. Vegetation myth, basically, are very famous. And this vegetation myth has been used by Eliot frequently in the West End. You must have noticed. The only reason that Eliot has used this vegetation myth in the West End is to show the possibility of, is to show fertility and sterility, the contrast between fertility and sterility. Now, this is the first time in the poem we observe, we see, we notice the possibility of fertility in death by water. Water becomes a symbol of regeneration over here because the effigy, I have already said, the effigy or the tradition of immersing the effigy in the river, in the sea, has also been hinted in this particular section to indicate that there is still the possibility of regeneration if human beings become aware of religious and moral things. So Phlebas was handsome like every person, and what happened to him, whether his bones will be regenerated or not. Now, look, Eliot used the allusion of bones previously in either first or second section of the poem, and in that case, what we observed that there was a rat's race, that rats were moving around the bones, and the sound of the wind creating in the bones. There, we witnessed, we observed, there was no possibility for the bones to be, regenerated. But over here we see that Eliot is more sympathetic to to some extent, sympathetic to the Western people, and that's why he finds the possibility. I don't mean the possibility is very strong, but still, Eliot gives a kind of possibility of regeneration over here. At least water is in this section, section 4, death by water, carries the possibility of either degeneration or regeneration. Now, this possibility of regeneration was so far missing in the first three sections of the poem, what we see over here. Now, let's see what happens in the next section, or the last section of this poem. What the thunder said is the last section. Now, this is I forgot to tell you one thing in the previous section, that this section was basically very large. And what happened that when this poem was given to Ezra Pound, Eliot's friend, Ezra Pound, what he did, he suggested Eliot to cut 82 lines, and Eliot said, proposed is found that if I cut 82 lines, so delete 82 lines from this section, then it's better to delete the entire section. But Ezra Pound, I mean Eliot's friend, and at the same time the person, he was a great poet. Ezra Pound proposed Eliot not to delete the entire section because death by water, or the water, the symbol water you have used in this section carries both, possible positive and negative aspect. So I want that you should keep this section of the poem, and the rest 82 lines have been deleted. In those 82 lines, basically the episode of Ulysses was discussed, and Ulysses was discussed obviously in Eliot's own style. So that section has been deleted from the section Death by Water, and it has become so short now. Now, what the thunder said is the last section of the Wasteland, and probably the most important section in terms of various things. Firstly, this is the section where you will see a kind of optimistic tone towards the end of the poem. This is one. And number two, this is the section in which he gives a kind of solution, and that is why it becomes very important. Now, after the torchlight raid on sweaty faces, after the frosty silence in the gardens, after the agony in stony places, the shouting and the crying, prison and palace and reverberation of thunder of spring over distant mountains, he who was living in is now dead. We who were living are now dying with a little patience. In these lines, Eliot describes the scene, the incident when when Jesus Christ was um arrested by Judas and other, people. Now, Jesus Christ was arrested by these people. These people were carrying torchlight, and they were, sweaty faces because they were very excited to find Jesus Christ. Obviously, their intention was bad. Their intention was to slay Jesus Christ. After the frosty silence in the gardens, the word has been used, frosty silence, because silence has been termed as frosty, because frost is a symbol of death. So this word also gives a kind of connotation that death is awaiting Jesus Christ. After the agony in stony places, stone is again a symbol of dryness. Agony, you understand the pains. So this line also indicates the pains inflicted on Jesus Christ by these people, Judas and his, you know, his companions. The shouting and the crying. So they were shouting, and the crying means the people who were crying means basically the crying of the spirit of Jesus Christ, for not for the pains or not for the agonies that he experienced, but for the pains and agonies he felt in his mind, to see his people, to see this sort of people going away from the path of God. Prison and palace and reverberation again shows that what happened to Jesus Christ after the arrest. He was finally imprisoned, and finally uh, he was killed. He was killed finally. And of thunder of spring over distant mountains, he who was living is now dead. Now indicates again Jesus Christ, that the person who was living, now the person is dead. We who are living are now dying with a little patience, and we people who are also living are now dying with little patience. Here is no water, but only rock and no water, and the sandy road. Now, I want to share one more thing with you, that what the thunder said in this section. You will notice three types of journey, or three types of movement. Basically, these three types of movement we are observing from the beginning of the Wasteland. One type of journey is basically the journey of the knight of Fisher King to Chapel Perilous. Fisher King was maimed; his land became sterile. So knight was sent to Chapel Perilous to find a reply that what could be the remedy to get rid of this sort of barren situation or this sort of degenerated situation. So it indicates the journey of Fisher King, the night of Fisher King to Chapel Perilous. Again, there is a journey. This journey indicates, the journey in this particular section of the wasteland, and the journey, you observe throughout the wasteland. Another journey is basically the journey to Emmaus, in which Jesus Christ appeared before two of his disciples or followers, and it also indicates that. And Jesus Christ appeared before two of his disciples uh, on the third day, after 3 days of his death, he resurrected and he appeared before two of his disciples after 3 days of his death. So this journey is also important. And another journey, the target of T.S. Eliot is the journey of the people of the Western civilization. So three journeys: the journey of the night of Fisher King, and again a journey to Emmaus, in which Jesus Christ appeared before two of his disciples after 3 days of his death, and the third one, and basically the target of Eliot is the journey of the people of Western civilization, their journey towards nothingness. The road, rock and no water in the sandy road. So this is the road through which the Knight of Fisher King is moving. I have said the three types of journey. Similar is the condition of the people of the Westland, that the land or the journey they are taking, in their journey there is no water. Only, and the sandy road. Sandy road indicates the hollowness and the barrenness of the human soul of the Western civilization. You know, three journeys are running side by side over here. The physical journey of the Knight of Fisher King also indicates the moral journey of the Western civilization. The road winding above among the mountains, which are mountains of rock without water. So when the Knight of Fisher King was moving towards upwards the mountain, there was no possibility of water, there was only rock. Again, it indicates the barrenness of human soul. And this barrenness also indicates the barrenness of human soul of the Western people. If there were water, we should stop and drink. Amongst the rock, one can stop or think, sweat is dry and feet are in the sand. So, if we could stand over there, if we could get water, we would drink it, but there is no possibility of water. What is the function of water? Water, satisfies a person's thirst. It quenches a person's thirst. So water quenches a person's physical thirst, but there is something that quenches a person's spiritual thirst. So water has also been used over here as a kind of symbol that not only quenches a person's physical thirst, but also spiritual thirst. And the journey of the Knight of Fisher King towards Chapel Perilous becomes, a very, you can say, troublesome, and becomes very boring, and becomes very painful, and becomes very pessimistic, because he doesn't find any possibility, any possibility of arriving over there. He will finally arrive over there, but the road to the chapel is full of pains and sufferings, and full of sterility, and full of barrenness. So this is the condition of the Western people as well. So this journey, I am telling you repeatedly, is not simply a physical journey, it's a spiritual journey as well. If there were only water amongst the rock, dead mountain mouth of curious teeth and cannot speak, here one can neither stand nor lie nor sit. There is not even silence in the mountains, but dry, sterile thunder without rain. So the night this gives the description of the mountain, and the description is that there is nothing in the mountain and not even silence in the mountain. So if there was only silence, then still that could be worth enjoying. But dry, sterile thunder, there is the thunderstorm, but there is no rain. So that is important. The thunder is there, the sound is there, but there is no rain. So what does it indicate? It indicates that there is the tremor, there is the sound, there is the thunder, but there is no water, there is no rain that could refresh, that could regenerate the people. So the rain is absent, shower is absent, but the sound of the thunder is present. I mean, the destructive symbol is present, the destructive symbol fire is present, but the constructive and regenerative symbol rain is missing. And throughout the journey, throughout the whole journey, this we see this to happen. There is not even solitude in the mountains. So solitude or solitariness is also missing. It doesn't mean that you can enjoy solitariness or solitude in the mountain, because there is always, the sound of thunder. But red sullen faces sneer and snarl from doors of mud-caked houses if there were water, and no rock if there were rock, and also water, and water a spring, a pool among the rock. If there were the sound of water only, not the cicada and dry grass singing, but sound of water over a rock, where the hermit thrush sings in pine trees, drip, drop, 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 but there is no water. Now you can gaze that if we look, if we consider this, these sentences are the remarks of, or the expression of the knight of Fisher King, then you can easily gaze the eagerness with which he was waiting for shower or rain or water. Now this eagerness of waiting for water also indicates that the people of the Westland have got still the possibility, because they want to get rid of this barren situation, this hollowness, I mean moral hollowness, this moral barrenness. They want to get rid of this moral barrenness. But what about the possibility? That's the different question. But there is a kind of desire, though the desire is not that much strong among the Western people, but still there is a desire. So the night of Fisher King, he is waiting, he is eagerly waiting for rain. He is eagerly waiting for water, but the water is missing. The water is still absent. So he continues his journey. Who is the third who walks always beside you? When I count, there are only you and I together, but when I look ahead up the white road, there is always another one walking beside you. Gliding wrapped in a brown mantle, hooded, I do not know whether a man or a woman, but who is that on the other side of you? Now there is one third person who is walking. Now there is why third person? I said that Jesus Christ resurrected after 3 days of his death. Now, when he resurrected, he appeared before two of his disciples. Now, the two persons that first they could not realize that who is the third person. Now, gradually they came to understand. What happened to the Western people, that they don't have eyes to see that there is one person beside them, and this third person is basically Jesus Christ. So the inability to understand, or inability to observe the person who is walking beside them also indicates the inability or impossibility or improbability of their souls to be regenerated. So because they cannot see or they cannot feel the presence of the third person beside them. What is that sound high in the air, murmur of maternal lamentation? Who are those hooded hordes swarming over endless plains, stumbling in cracked earth, ringed by the flat horizon only? What is The city over the mountains cracks and reforms and bursts in violet air. Falling lowers Jerusalem, Athens, Alexandria, Vienna, London, unreal. Now here again we see a kind of frustration painted or delineated by T.S. Eliot. He draws a kind of situation of the art, the major cities of the art, Jerusalem, Athens, Alexandria, Vienna, London, every city it has become unreal. Why the cities have become unreal? Because like the barren, land of Fisher King, these cities have also become barren. Now, the Western civilization or the people of the Westland, they have degenerated to these cities to the state of barrenness. There is no possibility of regeneration, hardly any possibility of regeneration. We are towards the end of the poem. That's why Eliot will be to some extent optimistic. But still, the pessimistic tone still continues. And he says that all these cities are unreal because the people have lost their faith in religion. And these lands are barren lands. A woman drew her long black hair out tight and fiddled whisper music on those strings and bats with baby faces in the violet light whistle and beat their wings and crawl headward, downward, down, a blackened world and upside down in air were towers, tolling reminiscent bell that kept the hours and voices singing out empty cisterns and exhausted wells. Now a woman drew her long black hair out tight and fiddled whisper music on those strings. This is, a kind of image. A woman drew her long black hair out tight, a woman with long hair, and fiddle whisper, it's a kind of sound, music on those strings. And she has started creating a kind of sound with the strings of the instrument. And this sound is not positive. This sound, is again negative, and it's not symphony. It's a kind of cacophony, and that means a sound which is not soothing to the ear. And bats with baby faces in the violet light, it indicates also the degenerated human beings that bats with baby faces. So whistled and beat their wings. So can you gaze the kind of imagery Eliot creates, that he bats, they are with the faces of human beings and beat their wings. They are beating their wings and crawl head downward down a blackened wall, and they are crawling. So the human beings are spending their life. The human beings are spending their time on earth like animals, like bats, like anything else. So tolling reminiscent bells, the bells of the church and the bells of or the call of the church and the fascination towards the church is completely missing. What remains is simply the barrenness of their soul and nothing else. And the kind of music they create, this music is basically it doesn't it cannot give any kind of soothing feeling because they don't understand or they don't know the music that stirs the spiritual chord of human beings. In this decayed hole among the mountains, in the faint moonlight, the grass is singing. Over the tumbled graves about the chapel, there is empty chapel, only the wind's home. It has no windows, and the door swings. Dry bones can harm no one. Only a cock stood on the root tree. Coco, Rico, in a flash of lightning, then a damp gust bringing rain. Now, this is interesting. Now, when the knight reached the chapel, chapel perilous, what you observed, the chapel was empty. The doors and the windows were missing. And the door was not only missing, the door was swinging. And he also observed dry bones here and there. Now, the chapel didn't have any windows. So what does it mean? It indicates that chapel perilous, since there is no visitor, since it looks like a deserted place. It's look like a place where people usually don't go or don't visit. Indicates the absence of the Western people or in the church. I mean, their indifference, apathy towards religion, and they don't go to the religious places. Or even if they go, their visit to the religious places is just a kind of ritual. It doesn't come from the deep core of their spirit or deep core of their mind or heart. Now, this is interesting because since it doesn't come from the deep core of their heart, now this kind of religious feeling basically is external. It's not internal. So that's why this deserted or this barren, not barren, this deserted and place or church shows that the people do not come to religious issues or religious places these days. So it again we are almost towards the end of the poem, but still we see that Eliot is continuing his pessimistic tone. Sometimes he appears to be optimistic, and some moments later he is getting pessimistic because the chapel without any visitor and the chapel with the empty windows, with the doors swinging, with no visitors, everything gives the and bones, dry bones, everything gives the indication that religious places these days are not visited by people. Ganga was sunken, and the leaves waited for rain, while the black clouds gathered far distant over Himavan. The jungle crows hummed in silence, then spoke the thunder. Now we are almost towards the end of the poem. Ganga is the river which is very holy and which is counted or considered as holy by the Hindus. Ganga was basically it is also related to the Hindu myth and religion that King Shagur wanted to bring Ganga from paradise, uh, and what happened that his sons were dying one after another, and he wanted to do Ashwamedh Yajna, and he observed his sons dying one after another, and even he was unable to perform the rituals of his sons because of the scarcity of water. So he wanted to bring Ganga from heaven, but he couldn't do it. But his son Bhogirath, his descendant Bhogirath, finally became successful to bring Ganga from paradise or from Himavant. And Eliot has used the original Sanskrit, word Ganga, not Ganges. The English name is the Ganges they use, but Eliot has used the original Sanskrit name. And the limp leaves waited for rain, uh, while the black clouds gathered for distant over Himavant. And he has again used the Sanskrit word Himavant and instead of Himalayas. The jungle crows hummed in silence, then spoke the thunder. So finally, at the end of this poem, towards the end of the poem, we see the possibility of a kind of salvation. We see the possibility of a kind of optimism almost towards the end. When, when we see that the thunder seems to speak or seems to say something to human beings. Now let's see what does the thunder say. Now I want to share a thing with you that according to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it's a religious book of the Hindus. There are different Upanishads, and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is one of them, in which there is an episode. The episode is like this: that when Prajapati or Brahma, after giving training to his disciples, the disciples were divided into three types, and the types were gods, and second type, man, and the third type, demons. So I repeat, gods, then human beings, and then demons. So after giving training to these three creatures, when Prajapati asked them, uttering the word "do," he asked his disciples, "What did you understand?" And at first, gods, they replied that by the word "do," we understand self-control. That means the gods, they said that we understand that the final message before going to earth, what you are giving, we understand that we have to control ourselves. And Brahma also asked human beings that what did you understand? Human beings answered, or man answered, that by the word do we understand datta, that means to give. And demons, when they were asked that what did you understand, they said dayatham, that means to stay merciful on earth. Now this is an allusion from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. I am repeating, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, when the three types of creatures, I mean gods, human beings, and demons, after finishing their training under Brahma or Prajapati, they were supposed to come to earth. They were uttered by Brahma a word "do," and Brahma asked three types of creatures, "What did you understand?" Gods replied that we understand Damaita, that means self-control is very important for us because they are powerful. Human beings say Datta, that means to give, is very important, and they say we understand by the word Datta. And finally, when Brahma asked the demons that what did you understand, they said that we understand by the word da, we understand dvatham, that means to stay merciful to others. Now, when Eliot uses this da, or datta, damata, and dvatham in his poem, I mean the Wasteland, he applies these three qualities to human beings. So human beings are supposed to obey all three criteria and all three instructions given by Prajapati or Brahma. Basically, one type of instruction was given to human beings, but T.S. Eliot makes a kind of twist in the allusion of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and he suggests that human beings have to follow all three types of instructions given by Brahma. Now, this alludes to Hinduism, and the first one, Datta. What have we given? My friend, blood shaking my heart, the awful daring of a moment's surrender, which an age of prudence can never retract by this, and this only we have existed, which is not to be found in our obituaries, or in memories draped by the beneficent spider, or under seals broken by lean solicitor in empty rooms. So datta means that to give. To give means that you have to give everything for good purpose, for good cause. You have to surrender yourself. You have to surrender your property. You have to surrender your money. You have to surrender every material thing that you have acquired in your life. I am repeating that to give doesn't mean that you have to give only the extra money, the extra property you can give. Datta means that you have to give whatever you have. You have to completely surrender yourself to the cause of humanity. You have to surrender yourself to the cause of the benefits of human beings. And you have to give in such a way so that nothing remains with you, nothing materialistic, property remains with you. And why you have to give everything? Because nothing remains after your death. Nothing remains after the death of human beings. What remains? The kind of gift they give to human beings, the kind of donation or the kind of sacrifice, not donation, the kind of sacrifice they do to the cause of humanity. That is the only thing which remains after a person's death. So, this is the essence of datta. That means to give everything to human beings, to give everything, to sacrifice everything. and you have to sacrifice your property, you have to sacrifice your money, you have to sacrifice everything materialistic that you have in your possession. So that is the first instruction to human beings by T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot obviously has taken this allusion from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, but he thinks that these are the suggestions for the human beings of Western civilization. If the people of the Western civilization they follow this sort of instruction, then there is the chance of regeneration. Again, Dayadham. Dayadham means, I have said that Dayadham means to be merciful. I have heard the key. I want to tell you one more thing in terms of datta or to give. That there is a poem by Rabindranath Tagore in which, at the end of the poem, Tagore uses two lines. The story of the poem is something like this: that there is a beggar who was returning home after begging, and he had obviously a bag on his shoulder. So when he was returning, another beggar stood in front of him and asked for alms, begged for alms, and the beggar gave a handful of grains from his bag to that beggar. And when he returned home, I mean the beggar returned home, to his surprise, he saw that the portion of rice he had, given to that beggar, that amount of rice has been transformed into gold. Now he realizes that the person who stood in front of him on the way and begged for alms was basically God, and God wanted to test him that how much he can give. And the last two lines that Tagore uses in his poem is তখন কাঁদি চোখের জলে দুটি নয়ন ভরে তোমায় কেন দেইনি আমার সকল শূন্য করে. That means he now laments that why didn't I give all the rice that I had in my bag? Then in that case all my rice would be transformed into gold. So this gold or this transformation is into gold is a symbolic one. That means whatever you give to people becomes gold. So this gold doesn't mean that materialistic gold. It means that these are the golden things of life, that whatever you give to the human beings is basically will be transformed into gold. So I'm repeating the lines of Tagore again, that when the beggar returns home and after witnessing that the amount of rice he had given to that beggar, basically that beggar was God himself to test the mind of the beggar, that how much he can give. A beggar, how much a beggar can give. He is a beggar. So the beggar could give only one handful of rice, and that handful of rice was transformed into gold. And finally, the beggar laments that তখন কাঁদি চোখের জলে দুটি নয়ন ভরে তোমায় কেন দেইনি আমার সকল শূন্য করে. So if you want to give, you have to make your property empty. You have to give everything. That is called giving. Dayadham, to stay merciful. So people or human beings have to be merciful to human beings, to others. I have heard the key turn in the door once and turn once only we think of the key, each in his prison. Thinking of the key, each confirms the prison only a nightfall. Ethereal rumors revive for a moment a broken Coriolanus. Now, this one means that to stay merciful to human beings. What is the problem of human beings? We human beings are always busy with key. You know what is key and you know what is lock. And what have we done? That we have in our possession the key and we have locked every important material in the almirah, in the room, in the locker, and we use the key and we keep the key in our pocket or in our possession. So the key suggests possessiveness. The key suggests that you want to own property in this world. So this key is very significant and this key has to be sacrificed. You have to stay merciful and you have to sacrifice the key. What does it mean? Sacrificing the key means that you have to sacrifice your own happiness. You have to sacrifice your own pleasures for the sake of humanity. Again, I would like to share one of Tagore's songs. Bhenge mor ghorer chabi niye jabi ke amar o bondhu amar. I repeat, ভেঙে মোর ঘরের চাবি নিয়ে যাবি কে আমারে ও বন্ধু আমার. When I was young, I used to think that why did Tagore use the word chabi? Why not lock? Why should a person break the key? Why not the lock? ভেঙে মোর ঘরের চাবি নিয়ে যাবি কে আমারে? Why didn't he say ভেঙে মোর ঘরের তালা নিয়ে যাবি কে আমারে? Now, after reading the Wasteland, basically I understood the song. And what I understood, that the lock is not important. What is important? The key is important. Why the key is important? Because the key symbolizes the desire for possessing wealth. If you can sacrifice the key, then the lock doesn't have any significance. So the key is the mentality, the key is the mind, the key is the desire for accumulating wealth, and the key is the possessiveness. So what you have to sacrifice? You have to sacrifice the possessiveness of having a key in your pocket and locking everything in your drawer, in your almirah, or in your locker. So that is very significant, that you have to sacrifice the key of possessiveness, the key of property. Damaita, that means self-control. The boat responded gaily to the hand expert with sail and oar. The sea was calm. Your heart would have responded gaily when invited, beating confident to controlling hands. Now, you have to control yourself. This is the third instruction, that a person has to control himself. When the pilot of a ship is expert, then the passengers are safe. But when the pilot of a ship is not expert, then the passengers are unsafe. So you have to control your physical desires. You have to control your desires for wealth. You have to control your desires for material prosperity in such a way so that you can do benefits to the people, you can do benefits to the world. So self-control is very important. In most cases, people cannot control themselves because they don't know where to stop. They want to accumulate money, wealth, and other things. Now you understand that what is the value, what is the significance of so much wealth, because wealth will not gain anything for you. That is why Dhammayata is also important, developing a kind of self-control. Say, for example, you are a powerful person. So if you don't have control over yourself, you will abuse your power. You are a rich person. If you don't have control over yourself, then you will abuse your wealth. So that is why, Dhammayata or self-control is also important. So what did I say? Basically, I didn't say, I explained. What Eliot said, Eliot also didn't say. Basically, he took this episode from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad of, Hinduism. And what does it indicate? There are three words: Datta, Dayadham, and Damayata. These three suggestions were given to human beings, gods, and demons before their final departure after their training to Brahma. And this has been used by Eliot. And all these three instructions meant for gods, human beings, and demons have been applied for human beings by Eliot. He has twisted this episode. And what does Eliot mean, and what does it mean? He says datta, that means you have to give everything. You should not keep anything for you. It's a kind of sacrifice. It doesn't mean that you will keep certain things for you and you have to sacrifice the extra things for others. No, you have to sacrifice everything for human beings. So that is datta. Dayadham, that means you have to be merciful and you have to sacrifice the key of your position. You have to sacrifice the key of wealth. That is important. And Damayata, that means you have to develop self-control over yourself. So these are the three suggestions given by T.S. Eliot for the salvation of the souls of the Western civilization. I sat upon the shore fishing with the arid plain behind me. Shall I at least set my hands in order? London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. There are some Latin words, I am not reading them. These fragments I have showed against my ruins. Why then fit you? Hieronymus mad again. Hieronimo is a character of Spanish tragedy by Thomas Kyd. So Hieronimo had lost his son. His son was murdered, and Hieronimo became almost mad to take revenge for his son. Datta Dayadham Damayata Shanti 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 is also taken from Hinduism, which indicates that peace pervades everywhere in the universe. So the last suggestion of the poem is Datta Dayadham Damayata Shanti Shanti Shanti. I want to share certain things with you, that the wasteland is basically it's a summary, it's a substance, and it's everything of modern Western civilization. The Westland focuses on the moral and religious degeneration of the Western civilization. The Western people, they have come far away from the path of Christianity. In basically, Christianity lives only in rituals and in doing this and that. But basically, Christianity or religion is missing in the life of the Western civilization. What we have noticed throughout the poem, morality is also missing among the people of the Western civilization. They are completely immoral. Love doesn't have any significance for the people of the, I mean, spiritual love doesn't have any significance for the people of the Western civilization. By love, they only understand physical pleasures. We have noticed the kind of love that Western people are involved in the episode of, the Lady of Situation of, or Belladonna. We have also noticed this kind of, conjugal affair in the episode of Lil. We see that the husband, a masculine, symbol, he is only, intended on fulfilling his physical desire. And in case of Lady of Situation in the upper class society, we also saw that love basically means physical desires. We also noticed the same thing in the episode of Typist Girl and the Carbuncular Man, that the love basically means fulfilling physical desires. In the episode of Thames Girls, we also noticed that love is basically fulfilling physical desires, and love is completely absent. I mean, spiritual love is completely absent in the Western society. So religion, I mean, religious belief, genuine religious belief, is missing in the Western society, according to T.S. Eliot in the Westland. So morality is missing in the Western society. Spiritual love is also missing in the society. Alienation or a kind of loneliness pervades the society of Western civilization. They are suffering from existentialist crisis. They are completely alienated from one another. They are focused on accumulating materialistic gain in their life. So religion doesn't find any space in their life. So they are completely in a degenerated state of life. And whether there is any possibility of regeneration in the five parts of the poem, the first four parts hardly, the first three parts hardly give any indication of spiritual regeneration, but the fourth parts, I mean, death by water, starts the possibility. And finally, in the last part, what the thunder said, and basically this allusion from Brihadaranya Upanishad, it gives a kind of hints that there is still the possibility of regeneration. The poem ends with a kind of optimistic note, though the entire poem is full of pessimism. And the people of the Westland, they can be optimistic provided they have to follow the instruction that is given finally. If they want the salvation of their soul, if they want regeneration in their life, then they have to follow the instruction of, I mean, Datta, Dayadham, and Damayata. They have to give, they have to sacrifice everything for the cause of humanity. They have to be merciful to human beings, and they have to control their physical desires. So if these three instructions can be followed by the people of the Westland, only then there is the chance, there is the possibility of regeneration, and only then there is the possibility that Shanti will pervade the whole universe. So that is basically the theme of the Wasteland. What about the style of the Wasteland? The Wasteland is divided into 5 parts. Why? The Wasteland is In the Wasteland, Eliot uses different types of rhymes. Sometimes you will see one type of structure in the poem, sometimes different another type of structure. So the same structure is not maintained throughout the whole poem. It's a kind of fragmentation. As the life of human being is fragmented, as our soul, as our self is fragmented, as our life is fragmented, with this coherence, to maintain coherence with the fragmentation of our life, the structure of the poem has also been fragmented. One speaker has been used by T.S. Eliot, and the speaker is, Tiresias. Why this speaker? Because Tiresias is a prophet who can see the past, present, and future. So this is another style. So, fragmentary style has been used. The poem is divided into 5 parts. Fragmentation has been used not only in theme but also in structure. Different types of rhymes have been used, different types of structures of lines have been used in this poem, and finally allusions have been used by T.S.L. Different types of allusions from religion, from Shakespeare's plays, from myth, from different sources. And not only that, he has used Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism. He has used allusions from different religious books in this poem. Why has he used these themes or these different types of allusions in this poem? The reason is that probably he wanted, not probably, he wanted to give or render his poem, The Wasteland, a kind of universal dimension. And that is why Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, different types of religion have been alluded in this poem frequently, one after another. So that is the reason Eliot has done it. Moreover, he has used vegetation myth in this poem and different types of myth as well, Western myth as well. Why? Because using different mythological characters, he has basically served the purpose that he wants to mean. He wants to give to the human beings. So, from structural point of view, the Wasteland is fragmented, and different types of allusions have been used. Rhyme is not regular in this poem, and allusions have been used frequently. So, the theme of the poem I have discussed, and I have also discussed the style that T.S. Eliot maintained in this poem. So, I hope that you have done all these classes that I took on the Wasteland, and I will consider myself fortunate if I can, to some extent, make the Wasteland understandable for you. So I hope that at least my effort to make you understand the Wasteland will not go in vain if you watch these classes seriously. So stay safe, stay at home. Thank you very much.